In this video, I have a GCSE Maths Edexcel Higher Paper 1, and I have completed it in half an hour so that you guys can revise past papers 3 times as fast as they would normally take you, and also mark them at the same time. So please follow along, make notes, try the questions first, and then use my answers as model solutions to test them against your own. Thank you very much for watching, I really hope you enjoy, and as always, let me know any questions you have in the comments. Question number 1, 8.46 divided by 0.15. When we're dealing with decimals, we can multiply them both by the same number and we don't have to put them back afterwards. So 846 and 15. 15 does not go into 8, so that will be a 0. 15 does go into 84, that will be 5 times with 9 left over. From there, 15 goes into 96 6 times with 6 left over. So if we put some point zeros here, 6 is going to go in there, and we're going to be left with 56.4 as our final answer for the first one. Work out this and give your answer as a mixed number. First of all, convert them both into improper fractions. So 7 times 8 is 56, add 3, 59 over 8. Take away, and then 2 times the 2 is 4, add the 1 is 5 over 2. So if we find a common denominator between those, multiply the second one by 4. This one is going to remain to be over 8. And this one is going to be 20 over 8, leaving us with 39 over 8. Putting that back as a mixed number is going to be 4 and 7/8, because 8 goes into 39 4 times with 7 left over. A cube has a total surface area of 150 centimeters squared. Work out the volume of the cube. Now a cube has 6 faces, and each of those faces are going to be the same. So it's 6 multiplied by something is equal to 150. Now that something is going to have to equal 25. So if the face of a cube is equal to 25 and it's a square, the 2 side lengths are going to have to be 5 and 5. And therefore the volume is also going to have a depth of 5. So multiplying those together is going to give you 125 centimeters cubed. The table shows information about the daily rainfall in a town for 60 days. Draw a frequency polygon for this information. So for a frequency polygon, we want to plot the x values in the middle of each group. So the first one is going to be at 2.58. The second one will be at 7.524. I will skip this on and you can see the final product. And once you join them just like a dot to dot, that is your final answer. Here we have a Venn diagram, the universal set being the numbers 1 to 10. A is the odd numbers, B is the square numbers. So straight away, is there anything in that set that is both an odd number and a square number? That will be 9 and also 1. The other square numbers would be 4 in your B, and the odd numbers that aren't already in this are going to be 3, 5 and 7. So on the edges, that leaves 2, 6, 8 and 10, and that is all of them. A number is chosen at random from the universal set. Find the probability that this number is in the set B dash. B dash just means not in B. This is B, which is 3 of the numbers. So it would leave 7 out of 10 to not be in B, and that would be your probability. Also 0.7 or 70%. Scatter graph shows information about the ages and weights of some babies. Describe the relationship. In here, all you want to do is put something like, as the age goes up, the weight also increases. Something like this. It's important not to get this confused with the correlation, because they're not necessarily asking you what is the correlation here. The relationship, they just want you to put more context behind it. If you did put a positive correlation, that may give you a mark, but it's always a safer option to just say, as age increases, weight also increases. Another baby has a weight of 5.8 kilograms. Using the scatter graph, find an estimate for the age. So we want to go back to our scatter graph, and we want to draw a line of best fit, so a rough straight line that goes through most of the points. Find 5.8 kg on your graph, which is here on the y-axis, and then you want to go down to the age, and as an estimate you would say about 3.8 months, which you may want to round up to 4. The price of a holiday increases by 20%. This 20% increase adds £240 to the price of the holiday. Work out the price of the holiday before the increase. So effectively 20% is equal to 240. So the original price of the holiday is just going to be 100%. So we multiply that by 5 on that side, which means we multiply it by 5 on this side as well, and that's going to give you £1,200. The diagram shows a solid cylinder on a horizontal floor. It's 40 centimeters tall. It has a volume of 1,200 centimeters cubed. And we're also told the pressure equation with the force of being 90 newtons on the floor. Work out the pressure. So the only thing we need to do is work out the area. A cylinder has the formula for volume of pi r squared times by the height. We know the height is 40. And we know the volume is 1200. So if we fill in those numbers, through some division, we can find out that pi r squared is going to be equal to 1200 divided by 40, which if we knock off the zeros is going to leave us with 30. Pi r squared is exactly the same as our area. We don't need to work out exactly what the radius is here. So this is our area that we can use. Now subbing this into the equation for pressure, that's going to be force over area, which is going to be the same as 90 over 30, and our final answer is going to be 3, and we're also given the units of newtons per centimetre squared. Use these graphs to solve the simultaneous equation. Simultaneous equation, typically difficult topic. It's only 1 mark, so they're not going to require you to do anything difficult. All you have to do is look at the graph and see where does it cross with each other, and that is at 6 minus 2, this point right there. Here is a pentagon. Angle AED is 4 times angle ABC. Work out the size of angle AED. So this angle up here is the one they want us to work out. However, we're told that angle ABC is basically 4 times smaller than the one they want us to work out. So we're going to call the smaller angle X, and the bigger angle is going to be 4x. Now there's a formula for the sum of the internal angles of a polygon, or a pentagon in this case, and that is n minus 2 multiplied by 180. N is the number of sides on the shape, which is 5 in this case. So 5 take away 2 is 3, times that by 180 is going to be 540 degrees. So now we can create an equation out of this. So we have 120 plus 135 plus 110 plus 4x add x, which is 5x, is equal to 540. So if we collect up the numbers on the left-hand side, we're going to have 365 plus 5x is equal to 540. We can then take the 365 off of the 540, which gives us 175. So therefore x is going to leave us with 35 degrees. And finally, remember the angle that we're after is 4 lots of x. So 4x must have to be 140 degrees. Question number 11, we have some indices laws here. So we need to simplify this down into the form that they have requested, where a, b, c are all integers. Let's just break it down one thing at a time. The first one, when we have powers in the brackets like this, you simply multiply the powers together, and we're also going to have to square that 6. So that's going to be 36, because 6 squared, x to the power of 10, and y to the power of 6, divided by, and similar here, we want to multiply those things together on the bottom. So 3 times 4 is 12. X squared multiplied by x to the power of 1 in theory. When we're multiplying indices, we add the powers together, so x cubed. And then y to the power of 7 multiplied by y to the minus 3, again add the powers, so that's going to be y to the power of 4. And because it's a fraction, we can simplify this down. 36 divided by 12 is 3. X to the 10 divided by x cubed, we take away the powers, so x to the 7, and then y to the 6 divided by y to the 4, same concept, take away the powers, y squared. There is your answers where a is 3, b is 7, and c is 2. Martha plays a game twice. Probability tree diagram shows the probabilities that Martha will win or lose each game. Find the probability that Martha will lose at least one game. So as I always say for probability trees, you need to map out the branches and the pathway that is going to get you to the goal that they're requesting. So losing at least one game, that is the same as saying that Martha doesn't win both of them. So an easier way to do this is just to say, work out the probability of winning both of them and doing one, take away that. Because to satisfy this goal they've said, you could have that path this path, or losing both. So let's make it easier for ourselves and work out the probability of winning both. So 5/8 multiplied by 2/9 is going to be 10 over 72. And if we take that away from 1, that is the same as 72 over 72. Take away 10 over 72 is going to leave us with 62 over 72, which we can also half to be 31 over 36. That is our final answer. Question number 13. Y is directly proportional to x. Y is 25 when x is 1.5. Work out y when x is 5. So we want to say that y is proportional to x. To convert that into an equation, we introduce a scale factor of k. So now that we have this equation, we just substitute in the numbers we know, 24, 1.5k, and looking at that, we know that k is going to have to be 16, because k is going to be equal to 24 divided by 1.5, which is the same as 240 divided by 15. If you want to work that out with bus stop, you can. The answer is 16. So then once we work out k, we put it back into this equation. So y is equal to 16x, and we want to work out y when x is 5. So that's going to be the same as 16 multiplied by 5. So y is going to be 80. That is your final answer with that one. Write 1 over 16 in the form 4 to the power of n, where n is an integer. Because this is a fraction, it's going to have to be a negative integer. And because it's 16 on the bottom, that number is going to have to be minus 2. So 4 to the power of minus 2 is equal to 1 over 16. Part B, work out the value of this horrible looking thing. Now, when we're dealing with fractional powers, you always want to look at the bottom number on the fraction first, because that's going to indicate what kind of root you're going to do that number to. So it's going to be the cube root of 8, all to the power of 5, minus the square root of 9, all cubed. I hope that makes sense. And that will simplify down to 2 to the power of 5 minus 3 cubed. And 2 to the power of 5 is 32. 3 cubed is 27. So that's going to leave you with 5 as your final answer. The equation of L1 is y equals 2x minus 5, and the equation of L2 is this one where we don't know the k. We're told that L1 is perpendicular to L2. Find the value of k. So, the key thing here, perpendicular lines have gradients that are negative reciprocals of each other. So, what do we mean by that? Line L1 has a gradient of 2. Line L2, we have to do a bit of rearranging to work out what that is. So to work out the gradient, we would just want to rearrange it so that it's y equals something. So straight away, we can move everything apart from the y onto the right-hand side, leaving us with minus kx plus 12. And then if we divide by the 6, we're going to have minus k over 6x plus 2. Now that tells us that the gradient of L2 is going to be whatever is in front of the x once we've rearranged it, which we have now. So line L2 has a gradient of minus k over 6. Now, if they're perpendicular to each other, as I said earlier, then L2 is going to be the negative reciprocal of 2. So the gradient of L2 must equal minus a half. Negative being it's the negative version, reciprocal is that if it was a fraction of 2 over 1, we flip that to make the half. So we're saying that minus a half is the same as minus k over 6. And if you compare the denominators, multiply that one by 3. You would also have to multiply the top of the fraction by 3, leaving us with 3 over 6. Therefore, k is going to be 3. Question number 16. We're told the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. 3/8 of the surface area of this sphere is 75 pi centimeters squared. Find the diameter of this sphere. So the way I would approach this is 4 pi r squared multiplied by 3/8 is equal to 75 pi. That is our base equation, and you'll find with a lot of questions like this, you just need to try and find a way to turn those words into equations, and you can normally do a lot with that. Straight away, you'll notice we have a pi on both sides that we can cancel. Because these are being multiplied, we're allowed to do that. And the next step is just to simplify it down a bit on the left-hand side to make it a bit easier to use. So 4 multiplied by 3/8 is going to be 12 over 8 r squared, and that's going to equal 75. From here, to make the rearranging a bit easier, bearing in mind we don't have a calculator, I'm going to multiply by 8 first, and that's going to give us 600. And then I'm going to divide by 12. So 600 divided by 12 is going to be 50. Now r squared is equal to 50, so we need to use that to work out what r would be. Therefore r is going to equal the square root of 50. If that is the radius of root 50, the diameter is going to be double the radius, so 2 root 50. Now from here you may think that's our final answer, but if we go back to the question, the bit in the square root, b, needs to be a prime number, and 50 is not a prime number. So what we do from here is we need to simplify that surd into something smaller. So that can be done by separating the root into 25 and root 2. 2 multiplied by the square root of 25, 5, is 10. And that leaves root 2 in the root. So that is our final answer of 10 root 2. Make x the subject of this formula. We saw a question very similar to this in my last video, and I said it's a very common thing that comes up and the method never changes. The numbers might change, the method will always be the same. We've got x's on top and bottom of the fraction, so this is the process. We want to multiply out of the fraction first, so bring that bottom denominator up, and we're going to be left with an equation that looks like this. Now from here we just want to expand out both those brackets, so 5xy plus 3y is equal to 8x minus 28. And you'll notice here we can't actually combine any of these values, even if they were on the other side, but we want to get all the x's onto one side and all the other things on the other side, on the right hand side. So we're going to take away 8x, and at the same time take away 3y from both sides, leaving us with this. And here on the left hand side, we have 2x terms, but we can't combine them, but we need to somehow make them into one x term. And the way we do that is we factorize the x out. So this is going to look exactly like this. And then finally, because that bracket on the left hand side is being multiplied by the x, we can divide to get rid of it. And that is going to be our final answer. You may be able to clean up the negatives a little bit if you wanted to, but it's completely up to you. That is an acceptable answer. Question 18. 7 kg of carrots and 5 kg of tomatoes cost a total of 480p. The cost of 1 kilogram of carrots and 1 kilogram of tomatoes is 5 to 9. Work out the cost of 1 kilogram of carrots and the cost of 1 kilogram of tomatoes. So the way we want to start this question is with simultaneous equations. The first equation is fairly straightforward. 7c plus 5t is equal to 480. The second equation is slightly more difficult. However, it just tests your understanding of ratios. The way ratios work is we can set up something that says c over t, the ratio between c and t, is the same as 5 over 9. And we can rearrange this by cross multiplying, so we're left with 9c equals 5t. This helps us quite a lot because in equation number 1, we actually have 5t, so we can just substitute in the 9c straight away. So this is now going to be 7c plus 9c is equal to 480. Adding those up is going to be 16c, so c is 30. So a kilogram of carrots is 30p, and then all we have to do is substitute it back into one of them to work out how much 1 kilogram of tomatoes costs. It's probably easier if we sub it into equation number 2, because 30 over t and 5 over 9, you can see that to get from the 5 to the 30 we multiply by 6, so it's going to have to be the same, meaning that the tomatoes are going to be 54p each. Question number 19. The menu in a restaurant has starters, main courses and desserts. There are 5 starters and there are 12 main courses. There are X desserts and there are 420 different ways to choose one combination of the 3 things. The way we do this, all of the options you have for starters, multiplied by all the options you have for mains, multiplied by all the options for desserts, which is x, and that is going to equal your 420. So if we work out what this is, simplify it down a bit, we've got 60x is equal to 420, so x must be 7 through division. That is your final answer. Question number 20. For x is greater than or equal to 0, the functions f and g are such that these 2 things. Find the inverse of g. The way I like to do this is think of it as a function machine, or you can do it algebraically. Now, I'm going to do it algebraically because this works for everything, whereas the function machine can struggle with the harder ones. To do this properly, we want to say y equals root x plus 2 over 5, and you simply want to rearrange it to get x to be the subject. So straight away we can multiply by 5, so 5y equals root x plus 2. From there we take away 2, and then simply square both sides to get x on its own, leaving us with this. And then at the end of it, you just substitute back in the x where the y is and the y where the x is. So your final answer is going to be 5x minus 2 all squared. Now we have to solve g f of x equals 3. This means that we sub f of x into g of x, set it equal to 3 and work out what x is. So if we sub f into g, we're going to be left with the square root of 3x plus 4 plus 2 divided by 5. And that is equal to 3. So now we just have to rearrange this. Multiply out the 5, so the square root of 3x plus 4 plus 2 is equal to 15. Take away 2, finally square both sides, then take away 4, and finally divide it by 3. And that leaves x to be 55. Question number 21. CDE is a tangent to the circle at D. That is very important. Work out the size of angle ADC. Write down any circle theorems you use. So we know it is a tangent, so that is a right angle. This next bit is quite difficult to spot, but it uses the circle theorem that the angle at the centre is double the angle at the circumference if they come from the two same spots on the circumference of the circle, which you can see they do in this case. So angle BAD, this one here, is 32 degrees. Now I've just made a replica of it slightly bigger just down here to make our calculations a bit easier, but obviously this angle here is going to be the same as this angle here because opposite angles are the same, and we can work out that angle by doing 32 plus 51 taken away from 180. So that is going to give us 97 degrees there, which is obviously going to be 97 degrees there. 64 we're told is up there, and we can do a similar thing to work out what this one will be here. So 64 plus 97 is going to be 161, and 180 take away 161 is 19. Now if we know that this side is 90 because of the tangent, then this side is also going to be 90, but minus the 19 that we've just worked out. So 90 take away 19 is going to be equal to 71 degrees. It also says in this question, write down any circles theorems you use. I would recommend writing structured bullet points as you're going along with this one, similar to the points I've just said. So the idea that the angle at the centre of a circle is double the angle at the circumference. You want to say that the tangent to a circle meets the radius at 90 degrees, which is how we explained this bit here. It will also be important to say things like the angles in a triangle add up to 180, and also the opposite angles to two straight lines are the same. Apart from that, I think that is everything, and that is how you would get the full 4 marks. So please make sure you do this. 22, we have a cuboid. AF is 6.8 and FC is 13.6. That is going to be the diagonal straight across there. Work out the size of the angle between FC and the bottom plane. So you can imagine this as one big triangle in a 3D space. So what I like doing with these is just making a replica drawing on a 2D plane of this triangle just to make it a bit easier to visualize. So here we are, and this is the angle X that we need to work out. So this is just right angle trig, and we need to label our sides first. So we have the opposite and obviously the hypotenuse, which is the longest side. And out of our SOHCAHTOA, we're going to be using SO here. So sin of x, which is our angle, is going to be the opposite of 6.8 over 13.6. And we can actually simplify that fraction quite nicely to become a half. So sine x equals a half, and x is equal to 30. Because I know what the exact trig values are. If you aren't too sure, there are plenty of really good videos on YouTube that will explain exact trig values really well. If not, I believe I do have a video or two on my channel as well, so feel free to search for that. A complicated looking surds question. So we need to just simplify the left hand side to look like a root 3 plus b over c, where they're all integers. So let's break it down into 1 and 2, I think. Let's look at number 1 first. 3 root 3 over 4 minus root 3. This is a good example of rationalizing the denominator. To rationalise the denominator, we want to multiply by the conjugate, which is just the same expression but the opposite sign, on both the top and the bottom of the fraction. So if we use the claw method to expand all of that out, we will have this. Please let me know down below if you don't understand how I've expanded that out. And we can then simplify this to become 12 root 3 plus 9 over 13. Now if we look at fraction number 2, we have 2 over root 3. Now when we rationalise with just a root on the bottom, it is a little bit easier, and we just multiply by the root itself. So that's going to become 2 root 3 over 3, just like that. So now we have two fractions that we can just create a common denominator with, which makes our life a bit easier. And the common denominator there can become 39. So if we cross multiply to make our numerators match, we're going to have 36 root 3 plus 27 on the left-hand fraction, and we're going to have 26 root 3 on the right-hand fraction. And you'll notice that these two on the numerators can be subtracted from each other, which makes our life a bit easier and tidies it up a bit. 36 root 3 take away 26 root 3 is going to be 10 root 3 plus the 27 divided by 39. And that is an answer that satisfies the requirements at the top where a, b and c are all integers. Find the set of possible values of x for which these two things are true. So we need to again label these 1 and 2 because we're going to deal with them both separately. Number 1, 4x squared minus 25 is less than 0. With quadratic inequalities and normal inequalities, treat the sign as just an equals because it confuses a lot of people. If that was an equals, you would just simply try and solve it as normal, which is exactly what you want to do here. Now there is two ways to do this first one, but I want to incorporate good habits into how you look at things. Straight away when I saw this, I thought difference of two squares because there's two square numbers there that have a difference between them. That leaves us to factorise with 2x plus 5, 2x minus 5 less than 0. That's one way to do it. Alternatively, you could have added 25, divided by 4, square rooted, but you also have to remember that there'll be a plus and a minus answer when we do that square root. So from there, the answer is going to be something along the lines of x plus or minus 5 over 2. And we're going to find out what that sign is going to be. So the graph of 4x squared minus 25 is going to be a positive quadratic that has been shifted down 25 spaces. So it's going to look something like this. We're interested where that graph is less than 0, so below the x-axis. So that is going to occur in this area down here where the red squiggly line is. So we want to actually refer to the x values on that red line that I've just drawn across the x-axis. This will be your minus 5 over 2. This will be your positive 5 over 2. So we're interested in x being less than 5 over 2, but greater than minus 5 over 2. And that is how we solve it for the first one. So now a very similar idea for our second one. The first thing I will do here is multiply everything by minus 1 to make that x squared term positive. However, when we multiply by minus 1 on a quadratic inequality, or any inequality again, we want to flip that sign round so it's now less than 0. Now we want to just solve it as normal, and the best way to do that is probably going to be factorising. So we want to have a 3x at the front of the first bracket and an x at the second. We need to find two numbers that multiply to make minus 12, add to make plus 5. Those two numbers are going to be 3 and a 4, and if we put the 3 over here, the 4 over here, we want to make the 3 positive and the 4 negative, because if you expand that back out again, we get 9x and also minus 4x, which makes the 5x positive. So from there, the graph will actually look fairly similar to this. So it is again going to be in between those two x values that we require. So x is going to be 4 over 3 and minus 3. So we're going to be wanting to be less than 4 over 3, but greater than minus 3. Now we want to satisfy both of these conditions with the x values that we choose. And it doesn't necessarily require them to be integers. So we need to just think about what these fractions actually are as numbers to make it a bit easier. And for those of you like myself, I find it easier to look at decimals when we're comparing these things. So you can see that minus 2.5 is going to be our smallest lower bound, because minus 3 is going to be too far for equation number 1. And 1.3 is going to be our limiting factor on the upper bound. So that is going to be our final answer, and I will just write it as fractions again because it makes it a little bit tidier. but that will be our final answer. And that sums up the end of the paper. So as always, thank you very much for watching. I really hope you found this useful. Please let me know any questions you have down below, but best of luck in your exams and I will see you in the next one.